Good evening, everybody. Welcome. How we all doing? Happy Friday, everybody. Got a good turnout already. Excellent. Let's shout it out. Jersey Red in Jersey. Rusty, my friend, thanks for always holding it down on the comments. Jeff Steen, good to see you again. Steve, welcome, Steve Langford. Hopefully my comments showed up about Dave being away this week. So I assume they just didn't give a heads up that there probably wouldn't have been a session yesterday with Dave. So yeah, hopefully that's okay. Who else we got here? Peter N. Good day, back at you. We got some Blackfoot on there, although it's not a highway song, but I think it's another rocker. David Shore teaching that one. Mark B. in Oregon. Staying inside to play guitars. That's a good one. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Danny in Arkansas. Welcome. Larry, every day's a great day for guitar. I love it. Thank you, Larry, my friend. Steve in New Hampshire. Welcome as always. Jim Gregory's back. Good to see you again, Jim. Excellent. Theodore, what's up? Craig B, good day in Melbourne. Terry, what's up? Welcome. Hello. Jeff from California in the heat wave, bearing it all. Hope you're well, my friend. Thanks for joining us. HH, Ottawa in the house. Excellent. Laura from Mountain View, California. Excellent. Ryan, what's up? West Virginia in the house. Zane, what's going on? Tien in Vietnam. Welcome as always. Good day to Paul in Melbourne. Excellent. We got our Aussies out in full force this morning down there. Heritage, what's going on? Good evening. Timmy from Virginia, I think. Timmy, what's up? And excellent. Roger, what's going on? Jeff from Stafford, Virginia. Boulder, Colorado for the cruiser. All right. Thanks so much for joining everybody tonight. For those of you new or first time, perhaps, tuning into the stream tonight, we go through some musical examples tonight, a few exercises. It's called a guitar workout. We're doing it on the electric, so it's a little more electric focused, but a lot of these approaches can be transferred over to the acoustic if that's all you have. So that's not a big deal at all. Maybe a couple of these exercises a little more suited, a little more lead guitar suited to the electric, but most of this is transferable, okay? Usually do alternate each week, electric guitar, acoustic guitar. And we go through tabs, we go through musical examples, some exercises. So expand the description below the video. There's a link to the tabs. Okay, it's a PDF file. Should be up there. All right. And, once again, thanks for everybody for joining here tonight. Excellent. Got a great turnout. Also, if you're new to it, any guitar related question at any time, just throw it up on the comments there. Love questions. Love to do my best to answer as best I can. And there it is. All right. Guitar workout. King 50. All right. Good to see you. Check it in. Love it. Usually started off with some sort of a warm up. And, for as long as we've been doing these streams, usually do the warm up as some sort of spider thing or chromatic thing using all the fingers. And I've sort of switched it up a little bit now. We're sort of doing a little more working on scales a little bit for a warm-up, a little more musical. It's all great stuff, just a little more applicable, I think, when you're talking about, a warm-up exercise that's just straight chromatic kind of stuff. It's all motor skills, which is really important, particularly for beginning guitar players. But we can also combine in working on some shapes, some patterns for your scales that you can actually use, which is also a good thing as well. Nikki the dog's here. What's up? Welcome. Excellent. So we're starting off exercise 1, part A, with an A major pentatonic warm-up. I'm going to do it in the second position. And the important thing that the tab does not really get across to you, but it should be of utmost importance of you thinking of it, is if we are playing an A major pentatonic scale, you need to know where all of the root notes are in this pattern, okay? A good tip-off is the way I like to practice scales and have my students practice scales is to always start on the root. The reason for that is that you want to tune your ear and train your ear a little bit to the sound of the scale. And so if you start on the root, you're going to hear the notes as they progress through the scale. They have a sound, okay? So if you start on different notes in the pattern, for example, if you look ahead to this pattern, we have a root note A. That's what we're starting with, 5th fret of the low string. But in the second bar, when we come back down, we're going to dip all the way back down to the F sharp note, which is part of the scale, right? But if we start on the F sharp note, you're tuning your ear a little more to F sharp minor, which is a totally different sound, right? As you know, the major and minor relatives, the relative major and minor, right? They share the same notes in their respective scales. So A major is the relative major of F sharp minor. So if I was to start this A major pentatonic scale on F sharp, I'm really hearing the sound of F sharp minor pentatonic, okay? That's what we kind of want to avoid until we really know what we're doing on the guitar, because it can get confusing really fast. Okay, so we're starting on the A note, 5th fret of the low string. Let's go through here. Just a quick note here. Dave in Cleveland, what's up? Thanks for joining. Terry's asking the exercise, what does the music note equals 74 mean? That's the tempo, and actually you can ignore that. I keep that at 74 on all the tabs. It's just sort of a generic placeholder. But typically, if someone was tabbing out a song, the quarter note would be equal to whatever the tempo of the song is. Okay, so if it's some song that has 110 beats per minute, you would see quarter note equals 110. And that's for 4/4 time. It might look a little bit different for other time signatures. But that is what, that is what it is there. So in the case of this, which is just a series of exercises, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a placeholder. It's like a default that my software uses. So you can disregard that. All right. Here we go. HH, I met a guy this week that learned how to play guitar by ear, and his sons also did. Even though I think I have a good ear, I don't understand how just through osmosis, you know what to do on guitar. That comes with doing it over and over and over again and learning lots of songs. And if you develop your ear enough, you're able to hear what works and what doesn't. And you instinctually start to learn the theory without even knowing what it is. I learned to play just by learning songs and writing my own songs and playing in a band and playing in cover bands. And I did that for 20 years before I went to music college. And I knew sort of basic theory, but didn't really, lots of gaps, didn't really know what I was doing most of the time. But you kind of learn it because you hear what works in a song that's in E minor, right? You kind of know where to go. You end up knowing where to go on the fretboard. You end up learning that stuff through songs that you're learning and just by trial and error. Okay. And that's what learning by ear, you will get there eventually. What my point is to that, why learning the theory can be valuable, is that it often is a much more efficient way to get to the other side of knowing what you're doing. Okay. You can kind of just fumble around and get to learn it all if you play enough, right? But if you learn a little bit of theory progressively as you're learning how to play and getting the skills to learn to play, it gives you a fast track for everything. You start you understand the fretboard a little bit better. You understand songs a little bit better. And so you can go to things a lot quicker, all right, without having to do all the fumbly stuff. Okay, does that make sense? I don't want to go on a huge rant about that because, there are no rules. Everybody learns differently, and whatever works is great. Some of the greatest guitar players of all time have a very basic understanding of theory, if any at all. But they have played so much and done so much stuff that they develop their ear enough to know what works in all sorts of musical different situations, right? And learn the fretboard enough to they know where to go to make those sounds, okay? They might not know exactly what it is. Okay. All right. Rusty, I tried to play the first one. Didn't sound right. Let's try it again. This is a major pentatonic scale. We're starting on the root and we're going through. Use your alternate picking. Okay, this is a big part of the warm-up. You want to train the down-ups. Okay, so by starting on just one note on one string, we're actually forcing us to kind of move strings on an upstroke, which can be a little bit of a challenge. So I encourage you to kind of plow through this. But let me play through this example first. We'll talk a little bit more about it. One more time. Okay, playing an A major chord at the end. You might seem a little bit weird because you can play an A major chord with the open A string. Okay. 4th fret of the A string gives you the major third, and if you bring your pinky down to where you started on that root, 5th fret of the low string, you can play sort of a different inversion of that A chord and include the lower C sharp note. Okay. That's what I'm doing there, just showing you sort of an alternate way to play an open A chord. Okay. All right, so if I just play one octave of this, I always like to do this because as an ear training thing, you should instantly hear the sound of My Girl in that. The riff in My Girl, the bass line in My Girl, the intro, is simply just the major pentatonic scale starting on the root. Okay? Right? This is helpful to go up just an octave because now I know where there's another A note right now, 2nd fret of the G string. That's really good to know. And then if I go up, I finish the pattern. There's the other A note, 5th fret of the high string, right? And the real quick way to identify that you have an octave on the same note is that the low string and the high string are tuned to E. So any note you land on the low string at the same fret of the high string, you're going to find the same note 2 octaves up, right? That's a real quick shortcut. Okay, so you've got your octaves right here. Okay, so really important for you to know where that is, excuse me, because we want, you want to, a lot of times you want to resolve, like if you're actually using this scale, you want to resolve to a root note to kind of give your phrases some closure or to make your phrases sound like they're resolved, right? So really important to know where those are. Okay, so focus, and you can do this in any key. We can simply move this up. Like we've got an A note here. You can just move the same pattern up and play it. Here's a D, right? There's a D major. Okay, but you can hear the sound of My Girl. Let's put it in A. Okay. So lots of good stuff in this one, albeit if you really look at this, this is a pretty well-known scale. A lot of beginners learn with this scale. It's the pentatonic box, right? But applied to the major pentatonic, okay? So your roots are in a different place. If we're talking about the minor pentatonic, your roots are going to be in a different spot, okay? All right, so once again, just get a click going, get a drum groove going, do it nice and comfortably so that you can hit all the notes nice, cleanly, crisp, nice, straight timing like that. Go as slow as you need to go. Okay. The speed will come. Just practice it over and over with nice, slow speed, and you'll develop the motor skills to be able to start going faster and faster. Make sense? All right. Nikki the dog asking, do you start all the pentatonic positions on the root? I will say this, you practice. I suggest you practice all scales starting on the root, okay? Solely for the ear training benefit of it. Now, in real musical application, there's no rule that you have to start on the root, okay? And in fact, you're going to start anywhere within that scale that makes sense. Those are all musical choices, okay? What I'm talking about is practicing and learning these scales, okay? Always make sure you're starting on the root because you're training your ear to the sound of that scale as you go through the notes in the scale, okay? And it's easy to get confused if you're not starting on the root. If you're just starting on the lowest note on the pattern, like I explained earlier, you're technically hearing something else, okay? And it could get kind of confusing. So that's just my recommendation, okay? But real world musical application, you're going to start wherever. It's a musical choice, right? Excellent. Sorry, I'll try not to yell so much. Get excited about this stuff, right? What's not to get excited about? Playing guitar, right? Excellent. Okay, exercise 1B. Okay, so if you notice, we've switched the feel on this second exercise, 1B. And by the way, those of you joining who don't know, expand the description below the video. You'll find a link to a PDF of the tabs that we're going through for tonight's session, so you can follow along. An A major bluegrass scale warm-up. All we're doing is taking the A major pentatonic and adding one note, kind of like what we do with the minor pentatonic and make it into a blues scale. For lack of a better term, the major pentatonic, we turn it kind of into a bluegrassy sounding scale. And basically what we're doing is we're just adding a minor third in, a flat third, in between the second degree and the third degree. Excuse me. So exercise 2 has a shuffle to it, okay? It has a triplet feel. You can see that the 2 eighth notes equals quarter note and an eighth note with a triplet sign above it. That just means instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 of, we now do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So in the case of this exercise, we're going. Okay. A lot of you recognize that sound. If we're just doing one octave. Sorry. Okay, so that's the sound of this bluegrass. We're just adding the flat third in, right? If we start with the root, there's the second note and the third note. Those are all major intervals. So we're going root, major second, major third. But in between that major second and major third, we're adding the minor third note in there. Okay. And that's what we're getting. Otherwise, it would just be straight major pentatonic, that My Girl sound, right? But if we add that in, okay, it gives you that bluegrassy, countryish kind of sound, okay? So putting it all together, that's one octave. So when you get to the next bar, notice that you're playing sort of the same frets, but on the next, the middle strings, 2 frets up, right? Which would be an octave up. So it involves a shift, right? We're going to have to go 5th fret. We're starting in the 5th position, but with the very next note, you want to shift with your index finger. And you end up in 2 frets up in the next position, right? When it gets up there, another position shift, 2 frets up. And then when you get to the B string, starting the final octave up, okay, you have to adjust for that by going up 1 more fret. And then we're coming down, ending off with an A major bar chord with the root on the 12th fret of the A string. Make sense? You with me? So just some warm-ups that are a little more musical, a little more sort of things that we can use in a musical context. What's up, Audible? Audible Headaches here. All right. James, what's going on? And It's For You is here as well. Welcome, everybody. Expand the description to get the tabs. There's a link down there if you expand it. And yeah, we're just getting rolling. We're on to exercise 2. syncopated strums with mutes. So I've been working pretty hard. I'm going out to film some reshoots for some songs on Guitar Tricks. And there's a bunch of Beatles songs this time that I'm digging into. Actually, for the first time, I've never really studied the Beatles tunes, as ubiquitous as they are, kind of in your head already just by osmosis in pop culture, right? I've never actually tried to learn these on guitar. So I'm going to be teaching these in a couple weeks. And I thought I'd throw in the next couple exercises sort of pulled from a few Beatles classics. The first one is a little bit of an interesting strum because it's a strum where we're not starting on the first beat of the bar. If you look at exercise 2, and I'm just looking at the first bar because that's repeated, you play that first bar a total of 4 times. So we get something like this, sounds like this. So we've got 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and did the strum wrong. I always have trouble counting out loud and strumming at the same time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and up, down, down, up, down, up. Okay, so when you put it up to speed, it's okay. So a little bit of a syncopated strum that can be a little tricky. So you've got an 8th note mute right off the top of the bar. So you're going to have to do some muting, okay, first of all. Second of all, let's look at the chord. It's an F sharp dominant 7th chord. And it's actually a little bit of a tricky voicing because, the regular bar chord would be 2nd fret across all 6 strings, adding the 4th fret of the A string, 3rd fret of the B string. But this one, you can add in the flat 7 with your pinky 3 frets up on the B string. So in this case, the 5th fret of the B string onto that chord makes it sound a little more pronounced. Like, listen to the difference versus... Okay, so just different musical flavors right there. Pretty cool, but got to use all fingers on this, and we're also at the 2nd position. So for those of you beginners out there, this could be a little bit of a tough grab. However, the rest of the progression uses this up the neck a little bit. So if you can't quite get it at the 2nd fret yet, try it at the 7th fret and work on it there. Remember my tips for bar chords, right? Get your fingers curled and in the right position so that each note is nice and clean. And once you've adjusted your fingers to be able to do that, shake it out and try to go right back to that and practice that over and over. And once you start getting it cleanly every time, with the fingers going right to where they need to be, you can start moving down the fretboard, okay? Because it gets a little bit harder as you come down, right? Make sense? Yes, Laura, exactly. Excuse me. So, like I said, you can practice this first bar. Instead of it being an F sharp, practice it up at the 7th fret, okay? And again, if this is sort of hitting your hand a little bit to be too much, just work in little bursts, little chunks, okay? And give yourself lots of rests in between. Come back, do it for 30 seconds, kind of every couple minutes or every 5 minutes or something, because you do want to try and train that muscle memory, just as Nikki the dog says, right? Okay? Train that muscle memory to go automatically there and to feel comfortable. Let's talk about the rhythm on this, because we've got that 8th note rest off the top. So you're coming in on an upstroke, okay? Up, down, and then another rest, okay? The trick on this, once it gets going, is that you want to figure out a way to mute and still have the down-up motion going, even though on the rests, you're going to be muting. So I tend to do this. I have the motion of coming down, but I'm using the karate chop on it, right? Like down on the strings. Instead of strumming, I'm just coming down with this motion, not having the pick hit the strings and just sort of coming down on this so that I'm in a position to come up with the pick and back down with the pick, okay? Like that. You see what I'm doing here? Okay, so actually on that first rest, I'm actually sort of hitting the karate chop on the strings, and that puts the pick down below the top string, okay? Okay. Jeff, yeah, the tabs are below. If you expand the description, if you need the tabs. If you're asking what Beatles song this is, it's Day Tripper, and the chorus, one of the guitars is doing, okay, goes to F sharp 7. Okay. Yeah, so what I'm talking about is on the downstroke, I'm doing the motion with my arm, but I'm just turning my arm so that the karate chop just hits the strings, okay? Now, there's another way to do this, which is just simply do the motion and then just, okay, press down. Like, so I'm applying the pressure with my fretting fingers onto the strings, and whenever I want to rest, I release the pressure. So it cuts off the chord, right? Like that. See, I'm not doing any muting with my right hand. So you sort of have a choice here, right? And then after that rest, you're coming down with the down, up, down, up. And then on the next down, again, that's where you want to mute. So okay, that's what you're going for. Okay, so you sort of have a choice of mutes, and as Audible says, sometimes you can do both to make it as clean as possible, right? So my recommendation, go as slow as you need to go here and put in lots of repetition to try and make this happen, okay? Because once you get up to speed, see this? This is nice and relaxed. It's not stopping and starting on the rests. The motion is still happening. That's how you keep nice steady time, right? So that's what we're aiming for. So nice and slow, you want to try. Okay, keep that going, and then figure out which muting technique you're going to use and just keep working at it. Make sense? All right, so. And then there's a little more of a chord progression here. After we play that 4 times through, we're going to keep the same shape and go up to A7, which is in the 5th position. And the strum pattern changes, and there's no muting. So it's down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Move it down 1 fret to G sharp 7. Then we're going to move up to the 9th position and pull the pinky off. Okay, so just a different musical choice here where we're going to the other version of the dominant 7th bar chord. In this case, it's a C sharp 7, same strum, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Coming down to B, same shape, down 2 frets. Okay, so if you put the whole thing together, you've got the chorus of Day Tripper, right? Ha. Okay, makes sense. All right. Moving on to the next exercise. Taken from A Hard Day's Night. Just a part of this is taken from A Hard Day's Night, but I sort of expanded it into its own riff, and to give you a little more practice on this. So we've got Jake. I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for jumping on. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Exercise 3. Just a way to practice single note walk-ups and walk-downs within chord strumming. Okay, so this actually, the first 2 chords come from Hard Day's Night, and then the last two bars are kind of kind of just made it up to give you a little more practice with it. So this exercise sounds like this. Okay, a little bit slower. One more time. Let's try and get it. Okay. So starting with the C chord. Some quarter note strums here. What's up, Peter? Welcome, welcome. Starting with a downstroke on the lower part of the chord and then the full chord. Okay. And Jeff, yeah, pointing out cool chromatics in this one because we're kind of, on the first one, we're coming from the root note, coming down chromatically and then back up. 3, 2, 3, 4. So that's some cool chromaticism to work with the rhythm of the song, right? And then going to the D chord, again, just hitting sort of the open D string, hitting the chord. What's up? All good, Rad Flying V, glad you made it. And then some arpeggiation on the chords. So root, strum the chord, and then some arpeggiations on the top notes, okay? Getting to the G chord, doing sort of a similar strum. Lower part of the chord and then the full chord. Coming chromatically down the low string to leading us to the E7 chord, okay? And notice because of the rhythm, right? In the first bar, going from the C, we had 4 single notes walking up to the D. So we kind of went root, down 1, root, down, up, right? So 4 single notes. So notice on the G, I'm repeating that G note twice. And then getting to 2nd fret, 1st fret, down to the low E. And then doing that same sort of arpeggiated idea on the top 3 strings. Adding the 3rd fret on the B string onto that open E7 chord. Sort of similar to what we did in the previous example, right? With the bar chord, we're just doing it on the open chord. Make sense? So this is a great one to practice. Again, to incorporate some single notes, some arpeggiation, and some strums. Putting it all together really makes for a really cool rhythm guitar part, right? All those elements coming together. And so that might not come natural at first for a lot of you. So this is a great opportunity to just try and blend all of these approaches, okay? All right? Right? I think it's pretty cool. All right, Jeff. So saw a video recently where they talked about Paul using down and then upward chromatics in the bass line for something. There you go. Same approach right there. Bringing it down, coming back up. Lots of ways to do walk ups and walk downs. This is an example of some chromatic ups and downs and kind of blending both of the coming down, coming up, or just the straight down. You can also use scale notes, right? Depending on where those root notes fall on the chords, sometimes you can play a bunch of scale notes coming up and down, right? I think we've done that in previous sessions where, say, coming from the C all the way up to the F, right? Just going up the C major scale, up to an F, and then playing the F chord, that kind of thing, right? So you can use scale ideas as well as chromatics. How we doing? All right. Exercise 4, a riff. This idea is sort of coming from Day Tripper. I kind of expanded it a little bit, but there's some riff. There's a guitar overdub in Day Tripper that I had no idea was there before I dug in. But doing sort of a similar idea to kind of just embellish a little bit on the chords. That's exercise 4. So let me see if we can play this. I turned it more into sort of a riff. So starting with an F sharp minor idea. Let me play this slow. Getting to the A chord. Okay, so the whole thing together. That's the idea. Playing off the F sharp minor bar chord, barring down at the 2nd fret of all 6 strings, adding the 4th fret of the A and D string. Just starting with the root note first, and then the chord, the full chord after. A little bit of a hammer on here. So you can keep the bar kind of going at first, hammering on from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret of the A string, and grabbing the 2nd fret of the D string. So you can kind of achieve that by just holding your index finger in place there. But then you're going to have to let off, because we have a quick slide back down to the 2nd fret of the A string. And you're basically coming from the 4th fret. So it's a quick slide from the 4th fret, sliding down to the 2nd fret quickly, and then back to the open A string before we go repeat it again, right? Okay. Second one's a little bit different. Okay, so just using notes from, we're in F sharp minor. This is the F sharp minor pentatonic box. Just using notes from that, right? So again, the hammer on 2 to 4 on the A, and then 2nd fret of the D, but then landing on the F sharp note up an octave, 4th fret of the D string, with some vibrato for a little flavor, right? All right, we got Lynyrd Skynyrd sounding. We also got Stephen Stills sounding, so that's cool. Yeah, all of that kind of is sort of that classic rock. Could be a southern rock thing too, but yeah, definitely a classic rock kind of riff idea. Okay, and then just moving up to the open A chord. Same sort of shape there. But still playing that first lick from the first bar. Sounds good on the A chord too, right? Because remember, F sharp minor and A major, those are relative major and minor chords, right? So you can actually think of that lick in F sharp minor pentatonic. You can also think of that lick in A major pentatonic, right? We're drawing from the same notes. So you can play the exact same thing. Still sounds good, right? And then off the B chord, that's where we change it to slide up. Okay, so I've got the 2nd fret of the A string and then barring down on the 4th fret of the D, G, and B to make a B major bar chord, right? The root 5. But then sliding up 4 to 6 on the A, basically using B major pentatonic then against the B chord. And then sort of a classic move is just to bar down on the 4th fret of the D and G string and add the 6th fret on the D string and then go back to the 4th fret on both strings. If you wanted to gussy it up a little bit, you could do a quick hammer on the 6th fret of the D string, right? But just for simplicity, I kind of tabbed it out. Okay, which also sounds great. Right, so what are we practicing here? We got some quick slides, got some hammer-ons, and again, doing sort of some single note embellishment off the chord shapes. So incorporating strums and some single note picking. So these are all rhythm guitar skills that are well worth working on, right? Particularly if you want to play rhythm guitar that embellishes a little bit. You need to be able to cleanly, staying in time, go back and forth, strumming single notes, that kind of thing. Makes sense. All right. On these guitar workouts, I love to, include something that works on triads. So I thought I would actually combine major and minor triad shapes on all 4 string sets. Now, what I mean by that is that triad shapes would just allow you to play major and minor chords, and also diminished and augmented chords. Not as common, but so we usually just stick with major and minors, right? Those are sort of imperative for you to learn these shapes because they're so useful for getting around the fretboard and playing rhythm guitar anywhere on the neck. If you know these shapes, it really opens up a lot of possibilities for you. So I thought I would put together this exercise where I run through. So basically, when you think about it, the triads, right? We've got a root, a third, and a fifth. For a major chord, the third is a major third, and for a minor chord, the third has is a minor note. Okay, so there's similar shapes, but depending if they're major or minor, one of those notes is going to be different. And a triad has 3, it's basically just a small chord. You've got 3 notes. That's all you're playing. The 3 notes in the chord, okay? Triad. So if you find those shapes, you're going to need a group of 3 strings adjacent to be able to play those triad shapes. So that gives you, with 6 strings, it gives you 4 string sets, right? If you start from the low string and go to the A and D string, that's 1, and then move up each string, you're going to have a total of 4 combinations of string sets where the shapes are the same on 2 of those string sets, but not on the 3rd and 4th. Okay, and that's because of the pesky B string messes everything up. So you're going to see this close hand the way that I've done this exercise. So let's dig in here. Where I'm going to be in the key of A. So exercise 5A is A major. And so I'm starting with that chord you saw earlier. If I start with the root on my pinky, 5th fret of the low string, the 3rd's going to be 4th fret of the A, and the 5th is going to be the 2nd fret of the D string. Okay? So to move through these shapes, you can just strum through it, or you can arpeggiate through it, however you want to do it. Mark is asking what a triad inversion is, and I will show you what it is, because we're going to go through it right now. The inversions. So notice this first shape in the first bar, okay? Root, 3rd, 5th, okay? So that is your sort of basic triad for an A major, okay? Now, if the 3rd, if I'm going to do an inversion of the chord. So now I'm going to make the lowest note the C sharp note, which is the 3rd in the chord, okay? But I'm going to move up to the 9th fret of the low string. And now I've got the 3rd, the 5th is now on the 7th fret of the A string, and now the root has moved up top to the 7th fret of the D string. It's up an octave, okay? So this is also an A major triad, but it's the first inversion, and the first inversion means that the lowest note in the chord is the 3rd instead of the root. Okay, the root, that shape is down here. If I move up to 9, 7, 7, now that is the first inversion major triad for the key of A, because I've got the 3rd is the lowest note. If I keep going and put the 5th on the bottom, which is E, right? Now I've got E, I've got A in the middle, 12th fret. I'm at the 12th fret of the low string, 12th fret of the A string, and the C sharp is up an octave to the 11th fret of the D string. And so you have this shape. That's the second inversion major triad. Okay? Does that make sense, Mark? That's what an inversion is. Basically, all you're doing is changing the order of the notes, basically. Okay? 1, 3, 5. 3, 5, 1, and then 5, 1, 3. Make sense? Okay. Yes. So Yeah, exactly. Jeff, you got it. So now we've got, that takes care of the shapes on the low 3 strings. So I've made it into a 4 strum exercise where we come back to the middle chord. So it's going to go. Okay. Now we're going to move up to the A, D, and G strings in the second bar. You're going to recognize these shapes. They're the same, but we actually start here with the first inversion. 4th fret of the A, barring down at 2nd fret of the D and G. Okay. Next one is 5 root 3, 7 7 6 on the A, D, and G. Okay. And then up at 12 11 9 is that same shape we started with, an octave lower on the low strings. Now that's going to be up the neck on the next string set, right? So we've got, whoops. Okay, that's the second bar. Third bar, now we're on the D, G, and B strings. This is where the shapes change, okay? Now the first shape's easy. I'm just barring down on the 2nd fret of the D, G, and B. That gives me the 5th on the bottom, root in the middle, 3rd up top. Moving up to the next shape gives me the root, 3rd, 5th in order, 7, 6, and 5 on the D, G, and B. And then I've got this different shape up here, 11th fret of the D, 9th fret of the G, 10th fret of the B. Gives me the first inversion, 3rd root. Nope, that's not right. Yeah, that is right. 3rd, 5th root. Got a little confused there. So, okay. And then finally, on the top strings, now I've got the 2nd fret of the G and B, open high E string. And this is the shape with the root is, so it goes root, 3rd, 5th. Then you're going to move up to 6, 5, 5 on the G, B, and E. Right? You recognize that as the upper part of the A major bar chord. These are all just, look, these triad shapes are actually mostly smaller shapes out of a fuller chord in a lot of cases. So that's that one. Okay, first inversion. And then second inversion up here that goes 5th, root, 3rd is sort of that D shape up here. So we're going to go. So now it becomes a whole exercise where you can start, you can go. Oh, wow. Something like that, okay? So it's going to take a little bit. If you're unfamiliar with these shapes, it's going to take you a minute, right? To kind of work through it a little bit, take it a bar at a time, kind of run it back and forth. And when you feel comfortable with all the shapes, try to stitch it all together into this exercise where you're kind of going up and down the string sets. I think it's a great exercise, albeit not exactly the most musical exercise, but I wanted to be able to show you all the possible shapes in one exercise. Okay, and obviously above the 12th fret, depending on what key you're in, right? These shapes are the upper octave, right? So they're all going to slide around the fretboard depending on what key you're in. But I started, sort of low, going up to the 12th fret in the key of A. Right? Same idea for 5B, right? I'm not going to go through the exact shape for each instance, but basically the third, Alonzo, what's up? Welcome. Thanks for joining. Basically, the shapes are very similar, but the third, wherever the third is going to be down 1 fret, 1 semitone, right? Because we had a major third in the major triad. Now we've got a minor third, which is 1 semitone below the major third. So the shape's going to change a little bit. So for example, now you've got 5, 3, 2, starting with that one, right? Yeah, Jeff, this is all A major. It works for A major, okay? So you've got lots of options, right? Absolutely. That's the whole point of it, is you can play rhythm guitar anywhere on the neck, right? Okay, so we've got these shapes. Okay. There we go. So on the low string. Next one. Okay, D and G string here. And then the top 3 strings. Right? So work on your minors as well. Okay, we want to just burn that stuff in as best you can. Memorize it, get your fingers around it, move it around, and once you've feel really comfortable with the key of A major and A minor, that's where you try it in different keys, right? And the way that you try it in different keys is if you know where the root is, the root note in these chords, that's your anchor note to find the new root note of whatever key you want to do it in and just sort of slide it up or down the neck, right? So just a quick example, if I want to find D major for these shapes, my root note on that shape is the 5th fret of the low string. So I want to find a D note on the low string, but keep the same shape. So the D note is on the 10th fret, and I've got the exact same shape, but now I'm playing a D major. Okay, and you just do that with all the different shapes, right? As long as you know where the root is in that shape, you can transplant it anywhere on the neck for any key. That's the idea with that, okay? Excellent, excellent. All right, exercise 6. I was inspired a little bit. I don't know if some of you know Tom Bukovac's channel. He's a top Nashville session guitar player, has a YouTube channel, and he posted a video today where he was playing just the most solid rhythm guitar. It was a masterclass in rhythm guitar, just 2 chords. He was jamming with a gigantic band and playing rhythm guitar ideas, just incredible feel, but just the rhythm guitar ideas were so cool that I wanted to just do an exercise sort of showing this stuff. And so exercise 6 is just 2 chords, C7, F7. And sometimes you'll see C9, sometimes you see F9. And the point I want to make about that is that anytime you have a dominant chord, a dominant 7th chord, you can always substitute any extended dominant chord. And what I mean by that is that you can use a dominant 9th chord, a dominant 13 chord. You can use those chords and substitute them freely, okay? So we've got C7 to F7, a bar each. And sometimes I'm going to play a C7, sometimes I'm going to play a C9, sometimes I'm going to play an F7, sometimes I'm going to play an F9. And also going to show you a really common sort of descending trick that you'll recognize the sound of, but that's useful over any dominant chord, okay? So sort of a funky strum a little bit. I tried to simplify it as best I could, but it goes like this. Let's see. Whoops. Messed up the last bar, but you get the idea. Okay, one more time. Okay, that's the idea with this. So there's a lot going on here, but playing off of some really common chord shapes for this and getting you moving up and down the neck. So the first one, C7. Okay, this is the cowboy C7, open chord C7. Not using any open strings here, so not using the top string. Okay, 3rd fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D, 3rd fret of the G, 1st fret of the B. And that's a movable chord with the root on the is the lowest one. So you can transplant that anywhere across the neck, any key. Use that. Strum is down, down, up, down. Okay, so we get into some 16th note syncopation with some muting in between. Okay. Steve, love it. Okay, check it out. So the F7 chord, sort of concentrating on the top 4 strings of what would be the full F7 bar chord, which we were playing earlier in this session with the pinky or without the pinky, like kind of going between them, right? Kind of like that, same strums. Then instead of going back to C7, let's go to C9 and play something. A classic move right here, okay? A C dominant 9 is going to be a different shape, 3rd fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D, barring down 3rd fret of the top 3 strings. And if you could stretch your pinky over to the 5th fret of the high string onto that chord, it's a nice little embellishment that you can kind of go to. Sounds really cool, right? And then the lick. Okay, we feel like that's probably sounds really familiar. It's kind of a go-to descending sort of lick that works over any dominant 7th chord. In this case, I'm doing it over F. So I'm sliding in the 7th fret of the D and grabbing 6 on the B string. Okay. Same shape, 2 frets down, and then same fret down on the 3rd fret, D and then B string, and then 1st fret. Okay. That's that sound, okay? And how I'm starting is actually out of, there's sort of an F chord right here, okay? If you think about the triad shapes, this is an F chord, D string, 7th fret, 5th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, but I'm just outlining it by using the outside notes and then just moving it down the Mixolydian scale. You don't need to really know that. Just focus in on the sound. Okay? Works really well over that chord. Then playing it up a little bit, right? Yeah, Jeff, just sort of how I explained it. He's asking, how do you visualize those double stops? Partial chords? Yeah, you can visualize them that way, but you can simply just get started with the shapes. Like, you don't necessarily have to connect them to chords. It's helpful to connect the first one, like I just outlined, that kind of comes from F major, right? You're outlining an F major, which is going to work over the F dominant 7th, right? But you're just picking 2 notes out of it and then just doing this sort of predetermined pattern coming down. Yeah. Yeah, and you could even play them, you know, you can play them together, but you hear it a lot of times sort of offset, arpeggiated. And especially in country, using chicken picking, that's a lot of that kind of stuff. But using all different genres, right? I want to get to the last 2. Running out of time here tonight. I want to get to the last 2 exercises. But basically, same ideas kind of up the neck a little bit halfway through this, right? Playing off of same idea on C7 that I was doing on the F. Same idea on F9 that I was doing on the C. These are just up the neck and just sort of playing it in reverse. And then playing that descending line on the G and high E string over the C chord, right? And then ending it, sliding into that F shape, and then realizing you can go to that cowboy F7 out of that shape right at the end there in the last bar. Okay? Cool. All right, exercise 7. Working on your bending a little bit within the context of a riff. Again, I think sort of the theme of these exercises tonight are, rhythm guitar combining strums with single note kind of embellishments. And so here's something where you can play strum chords and add some bending to it into more of a riff. And I kind of got inspired to this. I'm going to be reshooting Nirvana's Heart-Shaped Box song. And so this is sort of inspired from that. This is definitely not the song, but sort of inspired by it. Sounds like this. Okay. Right on, Steve. Love it. Okay. Just playing off some power chords. Now, tricky part on this is moving to a single note bend, 4th fret of the G string, sorry, and just going up a half step. Okay. So in order to practice this, you want to practice the half step bend so that you're in tune. So you want to center your ear on the note you're going to, which is just 1 fret up. You're going from a B to a C. So play the C and practice. Try and get in tune. That bend in tune, okay? Notice I'm using my ring finger, so I've got my middle and index finger behind there helping push the string up. But it's a half step bend, so you don't need a lot of help on that. Okay. So that's what I recommend to try and work on the bending, but then adding the chords. Typical sort of move on a power chord where you're coming from the G, but you keep the D, 5th fret of the A, but move the F sharps around it. And that sort of outlines a D major sound. Okay? And just straight power chords, F to G, back up, repeating A to G with the bend, and then up to the C chord. Okay, and a little bit of a bluesy lick here. So in this case, I'm up at the 7th fret of the G string, full step up, down, pulling off to 5. That is a classic move, landing on the A note, 7th fret of the D string with vibrato. This is a classic kind of a lick that you'll hear everywhere. Okay. Okay, so you're doing a full step bend, 7th fret of the G string. So you want to practice with the note 2 frets up. Okay. Or it's even down here, right? We're bending from a D to an E. So you've got the E note at the 5th fret of the B string as well. That's how you practice your bends to get them in tune, is just reference note. Try to get it there, match it. Okay. And then a final little exercise for you lead guitar guys, E minor pentatonic. I don't think I played that right. One more time. Okay, so adding some slides, just moving up on 2 strings, E minor pentatonic scale. Okay. Yeah, Jeff, the idea is you want to tune your ear to what note you're bending to. Okay. So the way to do it is just practice, 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 right? Like if you're bending from B to C, just to go back to the previous exercise, just for a bit, right? Right. So that you can, if you kind of burn in the sound of that. Okay. That's the idea. Okay. Blaze, what's up? Good to see you on here. Steve, thank you. HH, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was sick all I was sick all August, as you guys heard, croaking through each of these sessions. I feel like I caught something else in the last week, and now I'm coughing again. It's so annoying. Again, not I'm not testing positive ever on this stuff, so it's crazy. I was on all sorts of meds last month and felt better for a minute, and now something's up again. So it's just a lot of stuff going around, I guess. So I apologize for coughing all the way through this one. All right, Steve's doing it, Sweet Home, Alabama. Just burning it in. I love it. Good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks so much, as always, for all the great comments, all the great engagement, all the great questions. I appreciate you tuning in each and every Friday. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll be back on the acoustic next week. I think we're going to do some finger picking probably next week. Steve, if it's a timing issue, you got to go slow. What I recommend is playing along with the performance video and using the speed buttons and just trying to match what you're doing with the instructor playing through it. as best you can. And that's going to hopefully straighten out the timing, but go slow with it. I encourage you to go slow with it. All right. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Have a great weekend. Have a great next week. We'll see you next Friday, same time. And to those of you who also tune in with Dave, I believe he's back next Thursday. Okay. So watch for him on Facebook. I think he's still on Facebook, right? On Thursdays. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out. All right. Jay, what's up? Glad you made it this week. All right, everybody. Take care. Cheers. See ya.